All right, we are going live late tonight, but again, committed. We got to do this challenge. So Stanley has joined me again, and I think we're looking at doing a couple things different with our format. So just bear with us as we continue to move forward in this process. I wanted to start by asking a question. What would happen if you press the reset button on your relationship between now and the end of the year? This is, as you know, the year of the re, and it's all about rebuilding, reigniting, reclaiming the connections that matter most, and that's in all relationships. So can we dive into what we kind of talked about and consider to be 10 powerful re's that strengthen a relationship between a spouse or family or friends, or even, your relationship with yourself. So we're going to jump into those 10 things, and maybe a little bit more, because, we could possibly just add something different. So let's start with the first one. Reconnect.
10 is a lot.
10 is a lot. 10 is a lot. You want to stop at 10 with not adding any? Yeah, it's also after 10, so we're probably real sleepy. Yeah. I know I was sleepy. We just got finished with a webinar for one of my organizations, and he patiently waited so we can jump on together. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I know you're sleepy, because I was sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Rick, the first one is going to be reconnect. So let's talk about reconnect. Like, life gets busy. Our relationships can kind of sometimes lose their spark, or you don't put the right amount of time into them to really reconnect with people, or to connect or stay connected with the people who you are doing life with. So what are some things what do you think about reconnecting?
I think you have to have a plan.
Yeah. And be intentional.
Yes. You got to be intentional. You need to have a plan. And then you need to have a strategy for how you're going to implement your plan. Because you can have a plan, but no strategy.
No strategy. Good point.
And then wind up not getting anything done.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. Talk about scheduling uninterrupted time. So actually scheduling it, and not just scheduling it with your spouse. You need to schedule time with your friends. You need to schedule time with your community. One of the things we heard earlier today was a lot of times we put pressure on our spouses or pressure on the people that are in our lives to be our entire community, because we need so much. We need so much from people. We were made to live in community. And with that being the case, sometimes we put that pressure on our spouse to be everything, and that's not fair to them. So, you have to be able to have other people in your community.
They call it a village.
They call it a village. And it takes a village. It takes a village, not just to raise a child, but to keep us grounded. So, revisit old photos and memories could help with reconnecting. Just going back and taking a journey backwards together. Thinking about some things. I know one of the things that Elka and I do a lot. Elka's one of my best friends from life. It's, 40 something years or whatever, plus, actually more than that. Bunch of years. Anyway. Yeah, just a long time. We're just gonna say a long time. And with her, sometimes we flash back to things that we did funny. I remember one day the electric slide had just come out. It just come out. So think about how long ago that was. And with that electric slide, it came on when I remember we were in her little car riding to, I don't even know where we were going. We were going somewhere. And it came on, and we literally pulled over in the median and started doing the electric slide. And that's one of the things we laugh about all the time right now. Like, why did we pull over in the median?
That was dangerous.
It was dangerous and crazy. Like, why would we even do that? But it's a memory that we have. One of the things about, reconnecting is you can reconnect through your memories. So the second one, how about recommit? What do you think about that?
Well, you have to have committed initially to recommit.
Okay.
So I think you need to review what it was you committed to.
Okay. Ooh, that's another re.
Yeah.
Review what you committed to. That's good. Committing is not just saying once yes. Committing is saying yes over and over and over again, making it intentional to say yes to whatever you committed to over and over and over and over again. So, verbally expressing it is good.
Yeah, that's positive. But then people want you to show it. They hear what you say, but they still want you to show how you really feel about it. And if you're committed, it should show.
Yeah, that's true. We should be talking too about also when you're recommitted. When you recommit, you can recommit again. This isn't just about romantic relationships. Take some time to recommit to your friendships. Take some time to recommit to the things and the other people in your lives that you sometimes get way too busy to talk about or talk to.
We went to a recommittal.
We did.
Not too long ago.
It was beautiful too. Arthur and Val, our friends Arthur and Val, they renewed their vows and they recommitted themselves to each other. And I'll never forget Arthur's face when Val walked in. Yeah. It was beautiful. So, sometimes they're just things that you may not even think are important that are. So, think about that. What about reflect? Reflect is number 3.
That's a daily thing. Self-reflection has got to be the first thing you start with.
Wow. Yeah. It's a mirror to the relationship's health. So when we talk about reflection is the mirror to the health of the relationship. So you have to be able to reflect personally, and then you need to be able to reflect on the things that are happening around you and how they may be impacting your relationship. And again, we can never get too busy for the people that we say we love or care about. It can just, we get distracted by busyness, and busyness is the antithesis to building. So
it's an anti-building block.
An anti-building block, like a broken Lego. Gotcha. Set aside time for journaling. Set aside time for just meditating. Set aside time to be by yourself. What's something I could do better is a question that you can ask yourself. But also when you're reflecting, people always think about reflecting and think about the bad stuff. But reflect and give yourself some celebrations for some small steps and small wins too. Those things are always important.
Well, reflect on things that you can do for your spouse that have no direct impact on you.
Ooh.
What can I do that's going to be a difference maker? It's going to be impactful. It's going to be effective. It's going to show that you care, because everybody sees care differently.
Exactly. And that was a hard one for us for a while.
Yeah.
Because
care looks different for both.
Yeah. Care looks different for us. So a lot of people would say, oh, he does so much. He cleans, he cooks, he keeps the cars clean. He does all this stuff and all these other things. I do it too before you start judging. So be careful. But one of the things that happened in that is I wasn't receiving that as care, but he thought that's how he showed he cared. My thing was, I don't care if you wash the car. I can drive through and get somebody to wash the car. I needed something different. I needed more time and closeness. And what else was it that I said? I needed a bunch of stuff.
You needed to feel it.
Yes.
And you couldn't feel it.
Right.
You could see it, but you couldn't feel it. And so you have to know what caring looks like for your spouse in order for it to be effective.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're only on 4, so let's hustle up. Number 4 is restore. So we have restore.
You had to have something stored already. You're going to restore it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to resupply. So what is it that pulled you together in the beginning? Those things that pulled you together, that relationship still needs to be fed by those things. Now they're going to change as you get older, but you still need to resupply. It's like being prepared for the hurricane. You're going to have to resupply your relationship all the time.
Yeah. Good point. We talk about broken trust and neglected connections. And, a lot of times those things can be healed if we are intentional about it. Those aren't things that just are healed just because time has passed or whatever. But you have to, like me, I'm a person that I like accountability. Like I like for people to take responsibility and to take responsibility, even if it's not for right or wrong, at least take responsibility for there being a thing and wanting to try to fix it. So that for me is how you can kind of heal even some broken things, some broken trust. Apologize sincerely for past mistakes and things like that you had in relationships. Be sincere in your apology in the way that you can tell. Apologies are not the words, it's the action. So your apology, you can say you're sorry all day and apologize for something, but until you do something different, it hasn't changed the situation. And we always say, Dr. Henry Cloud shared this, and my mentor, Dr. Daniel, shared it as well. And it's one of those things where we apologize with the intention of getting something back. And you can be wrong. You can be right and be wrong. You can be right in what you're saying or doing and wrong in what it is that you are looking for or shooting for. But that's something a whole lot different.
Well, that goes back to those power and control that we talked about the other day.
Yes.
Power control. And that goes back to your character. Your character hinges on whether you can actually be an effective member or effective partner in a relationship and then not be seeking power at the same time. Because that's one of the things that's going to be exposed. Your character is going to be exposed if power is available. You're going to find out what you're really made out of, because that's a temptation if power is available.
Exactly. And manipulation. Manipulation is managed in that way sometimes through power. So, and what you feel like you would lose or could lose. So it pushes you in a position where you're almost afraid to restore. So show consistent actions that align with the promises that you make to rebuild trust. Another thing is kind of invest in some self-care, invest in help, coach, some sort of mediation, something, if you can't seem to get the words together yourself. We're only on 5 and we're at 11 minutes. So let's hit it. Reignite. Something had to be ignited initially. That can't be your default for everything.
It is because it had to happen in order for it to reap.
Yeah, well, true. Good point.
So you got to create a spark still in the relationship. So it still needs to be exciting. Keep it fresh. Passion fades. It's gotta be fed.
Yeah, it's got to be fed.
The right food.
Oh, yeah.
We just covered that earlier.
Yeah, what would be some right food to feed it?
Well, I say we talked about with women, you just can't romance me 5 minutes before.
5 minutes before sex.
Yeah. You got to start right after the last episode.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's more because, again, it happens more in the mind for us first.
Yes.
In most cases, or in a lot of cases, I won't say most. Yeah. Anyway. We digress. So we'll talk about sex later, another time. So, again, just remember that passion fades. And as people change, some of the things that you have to do to keep the fire burning also has to change. So you have to think about bring playfulness back. That's a strategy. Another strategy is find something you can do together. He and I are very different in the things that we like to do. I love outdoor concerts. He hates going outside and sitting in concerts, but he'll go play golf all day.
No, the same could be said for you.
That makes sense.
You rather sit at concerts, but you don't want to go play golf.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Unless I can throw the ball in the hole.
That's not golf.
He won't let me do that. He won't let me do that. So then I don't want to play with him. So thus the club sitting in the corner in the garage. So anyway, so to reignite, what you may want to do is try to surprise your partner with something that they like, something that they would like to do, and do it with them. Find an activity that you can do together and bring some playfulness back.
That's important.
Yeah, it is, because for me, I like to play. I laugh, I joke, I think a lot of stuff is funny. And he's was for a while just very rigid. Or
maybe it wasn't funny.
It was funny. It was definitely funny. So just playfulness. Think about fun dates, not just go to dinner all the time, but what's something fun we can do together? Number 6, realign.
Yeah, things can get disjointed in a relationship over time. And so you have to bring some things back. You have to be able to reel them back. And that's why it's important. We also mentioned the last time, you need somebody that loves you to tell you when you've turned into something that you weren't trying to be.
Wow.
And so you'll need to be realigned every now and then to make sure that you're still on task and that you guys are headed toward the same finish line.
Yeah, you got to have some things that are foundational too, though, because again, as you grow, you're going to change. Your interests are going to change. You're going to, I was listening to something this morning about exposure, and it was talking about, God doesn't expose you to things to make you jealous. He exposed you to things to show you what's possible or what could be available to you. And if we use exposure properly, we'll grow. And if we're exposed to different things, we may grow differently, but it doesn't mean growing differently doesn't mean growing apart. You don't have to grow apart to grow differently. You expand. So whatever that was that you were doing to grow, now you're both growing. And maybe if we use growth as the common thing, as opposed to the different things that we're growing about, we'll still be able to have a common ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for realigning things, we would suggest kind of revisiting your why.
That's important.
Yeah. Why did you get, and I think I told you in another video, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. So figure out what your why was and go back to it. And that's with family, with friends, in a romantic relationship. What binds you two together? Can you define that thing? What is it? Also, discuss and adjust your boundaries accordingly. If your expectations are not being met, have you communicated what those are? And I know that was horrible for us for a while because he thought that I knew. He would tell me, just ask me. And I'd go like, but when I ask you, don't do it. And then he would say, well, it's something you should just know. And I'm like, isn't that contradictory? And I don't just know. And then he's like, well, just tell me what it is and I will do it. And I was just like, but you should just know that. Like, nobody should have to tell you this. Somebody should have taught you that. But we both were thinking that. And in either case, none of it was the real problem.
Yeah, because you're just feeding a cycle.
Yeah. And none of it was the real problem. We were talking about the
underlying issue.
Exactly. Our underlying issue was something totally different. It was not that thing. And create like a joint vision board. That's another strategy to help you realign. Go back to what your vision is for your relationship. Even as friends, I tell my friends that I have expectations of my friends. I really do. They have expectations of me. And even though, like I said, my best friend, she and I are not in the same city. We're not in the same state. But whenever we get together, it's just like nothing, no time has ever passed. And that's why she is my baby. Next one, number 7. We're almost done, y'all. Reframe. Now that's an interesting one.
Reframe.
It's like your perspective. It's really around your perspective. It's how are you defining some of the things that you maybe are seeing or experiencing. If you're thinking about reframing something, for instance, I can talk about, I got a good example. Like when we would talk about something that I'm trying to think, like what was, I don't know. No, I'm trying to, you don't want to use that one? Okay, well, what we're reframing. Reframing is a way to reframe some things is to practice saying what if it looked differently from a different person's perspective. So when you reframe something, you try to put yourself in the other person's seat and look at it from their perspective, and maybe you'll be able to see it a little bit differently. But when you reframe, essentially what you're doing is you're shifting the conflict into understanding. And what you do in that space is you come out of where you are about the conflict and try to look at it through another person's lens.
Oh, okay. So you're not defending your position. You're open to every position at that point.
You're open to every position, and you're taking time to say, although I see it this way, can I see it? Can I see your perspective?
Oh, that goes back. We were talking about don't attack the person if you don't agree with the opinion. You can disagree with the opinion and still show respect for the individual. Okay. All right.
And going back to using some I statements when you're having conversations, replace your "you never do this" or "you never do that" or "you always." Da, 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 da. Nothing is never and always. Nothing. There are no absolutes. So no, it's not always. It's not never. So just start to figure out what other words you can use and use your I statements. I feel when this happens, I feel, or I believe this. Because just because you believe it doesn't mean that it's right. Where are we now? Rejuvenate. Number 8, rejuvenate. Let's go. We are almost at 20 minutes. Let's hit it. Rejuvenate.
Yeah, Everything could use something
Jumper
refreshing.
cable.
Yeah, everything could be refreshed. It's kind of like with your computer. Things are running slow. You're just refreshed. So in a relationship, you need to rejuvenate. The cruises does that. The cruise that we take.
Yeah.
They do that. You get rejuvenated because you really don't have anything you have to do. Everything you do is what you want to do.
Yeah.
So those are good opportunities to rejuvenate. Yeah.
Okay. So relationships essentially need energy.
Have to have energy.
Yeah. So and sometimes you get drained. You get run down like a battery. You know when like it's in the remote and you try to change the channel and it's like it just goes like
miss and miss.
Yeah, it's like and you're like, come on. It just needs a new battery. So sometimes you can just think about that. Think about a staycation or a getaway with just the two of you or just a group of friends. I did that recently with my high school friends, some friends from high school. We just got away. We got away. I have a trip that I take with another two of my girlfriends that we take annually. And that trip is we have 2 days on that trip where they're just rest days. One day we literally call it pajama days. We get up, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast, and we get back in the bed and yell from room to room and talking to each other about whatever's on TV. And that's just how we spend that day. And it's planned that way.
That's a part of the village.
It is. Yeah. And see, and it would be unfair of me to expect that from him and expect him to fill that void for me or fill that gap for me because that is not who he is. So I have to think about those kind of things as well. Next one is reevaluate.
Yeah, it's constantly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That can be tough too. Because reevaluating, that means you have to look at both of you, not just the other person. And you have to look at the actions that have been taken in the relationship. Again, whether it's romantic or otherwise. It's one of those things that you have to
you be honest with that. Because you got to reevaluate, that may not be some stuff you want to hear. And
you got to know yourself, self-aware.
Yeah.
Self-aware, and it's hard. Because self-aware sometimes, that's like putting that real clear, pretty mirror up in front of you. You got to lean close.
Well, that's because we're great lawyers, but we're horrible judges.
Exactly. Oh, or we're great judges. And horrible lawyers.
It just depends on the individual.
Yeah.
Because you can always defend yourself. But when it comes time to really pass a sentence, you're like, okay, well, I really wasn't that bad. Well, yeah, sometimes you were.
Yeah. When you're passing on yourself. I like that, though. I like that. You great lawyers. Because you're right. You could just say, hey, this is what, I can defend this all day. I can defend it. Right. And defending just as crazy.
Yeah. But to reevaluate, that's important. And then you got to be honest with them, and then they need to be honest with themselves.
And one of the things that we were doing religiously for a while was our date nights. We were keeping those, and we would move other stuff off the calendar. Wouldn't place anything on the calendar on those so that we could keep it going. And that would always give us an opportunity to check in with each other and see where we were. The problem with that was we were having the date nights and going out and eating, but our communication was jacked. So we still never really got the benefit of that until we reevaluated and started putting some things in place. Anything else of that? Okay. All right. Next one, number 10. Finally, you guys, we got to 10. Number 10 is release.
Yeah, you have to release people. You can't hold people hostage with past events, things they've said, things they've done. You need to give people grace, show grace, and extend grace. Extend the same amount of grace that you would want. And so in order to do that, you do need to release some things. Because most of the time, it's really not that big of a deal. It's not that important. But if it is an important issue, you still need to extend grace and move on.
Yeah, that again goes back to perspective too. Because where you may think that it wasn't that big of a deal, it's huge for the other person.
But if you reevaluate it, then they've told you, because they were telling you honestly what was good and what was bad about it. So you can release at that point.
Well, I think you can release once there's been some clarity around what caused the break. You need some restoration.
Another re.
Yeah, that's another restoration. So when you think about growth, sometimes growth requires you to sometimes let go of some past hurts, some habits, and even some relationships that no longer serve you, or relationships that drain your bucket, and isn't able to put anything back in there. You know, if someone drains your bucket but can't add to your bank account, it's a problem.
That's important too, because the habits are a big deal, especially if they aren't healthy habits. You got some unhealthy habits, got some unhealthy behaviors. Yeah, you need to let those go.
Yeah. Forgive yourself and others when you make mistakes, because if you can forgive yourself and others, it helps you to remove emotional blockages.
That's the grace.
Yeah. That's the grace. Declutter emotional baggage by sharing openly and seeking closure. Now, I'm one of those people that says closure can look a lot of different ways. My closure sometimes is really, really jacked. My closure is like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I know. I'm working on that though. I'm a work in progress, and I'm working on that. I'm working on that with my therapist and my coach. So again, when coaches have coaches, it makes life grand, because then my clients get the benefit of my coaching and my coach's coach and their coach's coach, because all good coaches have other coaches. So with that, it helps me to declutter the emotional baggage. And in doing that, I have to share honestly and openly. And I have to be willing to be wrong and still share my feelings and have them heard, but then also listen to things that the other person has to say from their perspective.
If you haven't been wrong about anything this year, you haven't grown.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you stand on. You can grow in a lot of different ways, but that is one huge one. If you do it right, if you fail right, you'll grow big. If you fail right, you'll grow fast. So again, just remember, failure is a stepping stone. It's not a prison.
Well, we don't take losses anyway. So
yeah. All we do is
our license are lessons.
Yep, exactly. Our life, that's like you said, it's either everything that happens has to end up being a lesson in some sort. And set boundaries with toxic influences. You want to make sure that you really draw those lines so people understand where you are and where you are not going to go. So they understand also where your limits are. And I have a family member. I won't say who she is because she listens to all of these things. But I have a family member, and I had to draw some lines with that person. And there have been times when I've just had to say, you know what, I'm getting off this phone. I'll just get off the phone because I can't do this with you today. I simply can't. I simply cannot. And now that person understands that boundary clearly, because I had to say, I'm ending the conversation because you doing too much.
Well, that's important for your mental health, though.
It is. It is important for your mental health. It's important for your physical health, because you physically, all of that's connected. And that's why I spend so much time coaching on those kinds of things and trying to make sure that people understand how important your tranquility is.
All right, let the people go.
Well, almost. I'm going to give them one thing. Can I give them one call to action? What I want you to do is think about which of these reads will you start with tomorrow? Which read will you start with? And once you figure that out, figure out how you're going to do that and do it consistently.
They're going to start with reviewing them so they can remember.
I know, right?
It was 10 of them.
Maybe I should start reviewing them. So I'll run through them really quickly. The first one is reconnect. The second one is recommit. The third one was reflect. The fourth one, restore. The fifth one, reignite. The sixth one, realign. The seventh one, reframe. The eighth one,
rejuvenate.
The ninth one,
reevaluate.
And the 10th one
is release.
Exactly. So let this be your year where your relationships thrive one step at a time.
And now we're going to retire.
Yeah, and now we're going to retire because it's late. So again, thank you so much for listening. I hope that we were able to add value. And as I always say, permission to love yourself has been granted. Have a good night.